Bitcoin is imploding. Over the past 6 months, Bitcoin is down 40%. And since its all time high of 126,000, it's reached below 50%. This is due to a lot of mixed factors, and we're hearing a lot of different speculation as to what the main reason might be. So, I wanted to make this video to discuss not only my thoughts into why Bitcoin might be kind of at a very critical point. But additionally, I wanted to discuss some of the trends I've noticed inside of the Bitcoin community, how some of the more traditional finance people have viewed the implosion of Bitcoin, and leave off today's video with a little bit of a thought and discussion and throwing my hat into the speculative game of where I think this is all going. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Bitcoin is down quite a bit. And it's something that's been kind of interesting to follow because there's so much speculation into what's actually causing this major shift. And it's one of the things where, if you look at different expert opinions, a lot of them can't seem to agree on just one reason. I think it's clear that we have the idea that the sentiment of the United States might be playing an effect into Bitcoin's implosion. You hear some parties saying that it's more of a profit taking initiative that's kind of driving it down. I have a bit of a differing opinion just based on some of the other, I don't want to call Bitcoin a bubble, but some of the other bubble like events and more speculative events that might be taking a place. So I'll discuss kind of why I view this as different than the previous times Bitcoin has been in a bear market. With Bitcoin being more readily adopted by major institutions, and especially after becoming, well, really legitimized by financial institutions, significantly more people have been investing in Bitcoin. I personally have gotten to see this because, as a lot of you know, I am a college student. And not only am I a college student, I'm a well connected college student. So that means I actually run my school's investment club. Now, one of the things about college students is they often, in their investments, prioritize instant wins. They want instant gratification, they want large numbers, they can't see past like a week into the future, they can't plan anything. So they're all about big wins now. And this is why Bitcoin for many years has been one of the main investments that I've heard about from people who are actually in my investment club. Now, in my most recent meeting, I actually brought up the question because I was curious. It's almost halved since all time highs. And again, some of these people will give Michael Saylor a run for his money in terms of like pro Bitcoinism. So I wanted to ask how many of them are feeling the heavy impacts. And what I found out is that a lot of them actually just recently sold out of the entirety of their Bitcoin holdings. Any treasury companies, any company correlated to Bitcoin, they're all panicking and running out. And this makes sense, I think, in a lot of ways to what we see in speculative markets. And especially if we compare that to something like the South Sea Trading Company when that started imploding, or the Dutch tulip craze, or even stealing a recent time, the NFTs. It was the NFT thing I think really fits because a lot of the younger demographics that were pouring their money into it, right? The second they realized they couldn't instantly guarantee that they could sell it to somebody at a higher price, they all started pulling out of NFTs. And if you go on OpenSea or any of the NFT marketplaces right now, you'll see it is a small sliver of what it used to be. And I think that kind of mentality has breached its way into the Bitcoin community. Now, what do I mean by it's breached its way into the Bitcoin community? Well, I'll give a personal example. Back when Bitcoin was kind of at all time highs, I actually had a conversation with a financial advisor, and he worked with a bank and he got a significant number of clients. And one of the conversations that got brought up was, of course, Bitcoin. And I was discussing it with him, and he made a few statements that I think kind of sum up the worst parts of like the very pro Bitcoin community. Firstly, number one red flag from a financial advisor. He said he was considering telling his clients and very seriously considering whether or not that they should be invested in any other asset class whatsoever and instead should just solely focus in terms of their investments on putting all of their money into Bitcoin because it was the currency of the future and it was a currency the government couldn't manipulate. And he was really thinking about telling them to just bypass any of the proven track record investments. Now, if I was talking and making this video back when Bitcoin was $126,000 per coin, I think I'd be getting a different reception. But right now, I'm kind of being proven why when I first heard this, was like, oh, that's not a good idea because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Let me rephrase that. You shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket unless you are 100% certain of the thing you are doing and you feel very, very, very confident that you fully understand the risks of just fully concentrating your investment portfolio. I can only imagine if after my conversation with him, if he did decide to go that route with his clients, how the conversations must be going right now. Hey, so remember when you guys came back last time and discussed all these goals and retirement, and you were so excited because you were finally putting money aside for investments and you're so close to retirement? Yeah, you're not, and your net worth is now half. Like, that is a serious conversation that someone like this would have to do, and that's the financial advisor. A lot of individuals are going through this right now, and you just have to go onto an online forum and you can watch it implode in real time, and it's very concerning. I think in a lot of ways, when I've discussed Bitcoin with the most pro Bitcoin people, they completely throw out any chance of concentration risk. They don't diversify. They want to put all of their money into Bitcoin. And a lot of them haven't thought through what putting all of your money in a significantly volatile asset means. Yes, it can mean that your money can quadruple in a very short time. It also means it can halve in a very short time. And if you aren't prepared for it to halve, then you're going to panic sell and you're going to make paper losses real losses, which is something we're watching going on right now. I cannot tell you how many times I've been scrolling Reddit and looked at someone who was going on about, oh, I bought Bitcoin right at all-time highs, right? And then I recently just sold out of all of my Bitcoin. And then this past Friday, it recovered some. So then I bought back at a higher cost basis from where I sold. So in short, you lost money, right? You realized paper losses, and then you bought back at a worse price. So you've kind of like bad decisions squared yourself. So now you've made multiple bad decisions, and there are going to be significant ramifications to your financial situation because you have gone that route. Now, I am not anti Bitcoin by any means. If you've looked at any of my previous videos where I've done stock valuations on Bitcoin treasuries, I've gone more in depth there in terms of why I personally like Bitcoin. I've never bought the idea of a Bitcoin standard. Simply put, we can't handle the transactions that the current system can, and it wouldn't make sense. But I've completely understood that we need currencies that no matter where you are in the world, no matter the government structure you have, a government cannot easily just seize all of your assets. And while I'm very privileged based on where I live, that I haven't had to, like, deal with anything in that nature. A lot of people have not been fortunate in that, and a lot of people have had their money hyperinflated away, or their currency has failed, or their government has decided they're going to start seizing their citizens' assets. That's a real thing that goes on, and that's kind of where I saw the value in Bitcoin personally. I also didn't sink my entire portfolio in it, and I put a figure I felt comfortable, and that's why my portfolio really hasn't been affected whatsoever. Because for that one position in a Bitcoin treasury company that's gone down, I've protected myself with multiple different companies I feel very good in that are pretty uncorrelated to the returns of Bitcoin. And so while that's done bad, these other positions have done well. Whereas a lot of people who kind of, I don't wanna say drank the Kool-Aid because I think there is value in it, but there are varying degrees of the Kool-Aid. There's the Kool-Aid that makes sense and it's, "Oh, you might as well have a small allocation in your portfolio," versus, "You should make this your entire portfolio." There are varying degrees, and I think a lot of the people in the far, far, far camp are experiencing what it means to be holding a significantly volatile asset right now. Now, in terms of the more speculative portion, where do I see this going? I don't see this as a major problem. I know that might shock some people, but this type of thing has happened in the cryptocurrency space before. I mean, it's happened significantly worse even in Bitcoin's history, right? It's been almost shrunk to 80% in value in very short time frames before. So, I'm not necessarily worried that this is the end. I think if anything, this is going to prove to a lot of treasury companies right now that you can't simply just buy and stack Bitcoins. It's not enough to just buy and stack Bitcoins. There needs to be some level of cooperation in coming up with more utility cases that ensure that basically everyone in some capacity has some investments tied to Bitcoin, right? Or a use case for Bitcoin that applies globally to everyone and makes sense for everyone. And I think a lot of companies are kind of getting that, hey, we need to innovate in this space. It's not enough to just simply exist in this space. We have to actually create products around this space, and we have to make it to where more people adopt Bitcoin. That's kind of the way I see this operating, but I'll be honest, right? That's purely speculation just saying that. Right now, Bitcoin is currently facing it's either going to become NFTs and Dutch tulips, or it's going to become Amazon in the midst of the dot-com bubble, where Amazon went down based to a broader market implosion that wasn't necessarily related to its company. That's kind of the situation we're in. And I think this time the stakes are a bit higher because now we have seen significant adoption by financial institutions. It's become legitimate, like fully legitimate at this point. It's on Yahoo Finance. I know I put the on Yahoo Finance, but like it has become a legitimate thing, and most people have some relation to an investment in Bitcoin, whether they like own it themselves in cold storage, or whether they own a treasury company or the ETFs, whatever. It is significantly more legitimate, and so there are much more like there's a lot more eyes on the current situation. So this is really what I view as a boom or bust event for Bitcoin. I personally don't see the cryptocurrency space continuing and having success without the existence of Bitcoin. I may be proven wrong, but I don't think the two can you can both have a thriving cryptocurrency market and no Bitcoin, right? We need both of them in order to fully maintain the significant benefits that cryptocurrency can have. And I think Bitcoin has the structure of one of the better ones. So, overall, I think that this is just kind of a normal event in very volatile assets. However, if you are someone who is highly considering just liquidating your entire positions, getting completely out of it entirely, but is also someone who came in the past few years when it's been doing really, really good and you saw all this coverage, please, I implore you, take the time to understand the risk profile of positions you take and in the assets you invest in, right? Because it is clear, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. Like a lot of people who shouldn't have been invested have panic sold out of this. It's just it doesn't make good it's not good for your financial future to continually invest in risky assets and then sell out of them when they're doing bad and then buy back at significantly higher cost bases. You are going to implode your wealth and you'll actually end up being significantly worse off than if you just had a portfolio that made sense. Hell, a lot of these people, even just a 100% fixed income portfolio, would have now been a significantly better return on investment than their Bitcoin. Like, that's just the truth. When anytime you have people flood into a speculative, greedy market and then panic sell the second it starts going down, you almost always hear, "Oh, I shouldn't have sold, but this time will be different. I'll buy back." It Please, I know this is like begging with a gambler to understand they have a gambling addiction. I completely understand that, but please take some time and actively pick investments that are going to align with your personality, that are going to align with your goals. If you're at all, like if you're near retirement at all, I would not advise somebody put their entire net worth into Bitcoin, right? Because this could have real ramifications, right? We could say, oh, Bitcoin's going to come back, so it doesn't matter, but it could take years. Like we don't know. There's not a sure answer. I would be very, very worried about trusting somebody who's like 100% no, this is what's going to happen, because you can't do that. This could be the end, and you could have just ruined your entire life based on this, like actually ruined it. So overall, please, please, please pick investments that make sense for you. I mean, that spend time understanding the risks of your investments. Don't put significantly more money in any investment if you are not prepared to potentially lose that money. So, overall, that would be my advice to anyone in that situation. Overall, thank you so much for checking out my video. I really appreciate your time. If you've made it this far in the video, please feel free to subscribe, like. You can even leave your comments down below. I really do appreciate. I try and respond to pretty much every single comment I get, so that would be wonderful. And again, thank you so much for taking a second and checking out my video. Thank you.